So the mess has Rebecca coming on, and she's got a tale or two to tell us, no doubt. But I'm curious, like you are, like we all are, that you know, maybe there's something we don't know about this. Maybe we read too much into the 1997 agreement between NATO and Russia that says that both sides will respect the sovereignty of every country, and that every country, as they stand at that time, which included Ukraine and Latvia and Lithuania and Poland and Moldova and Kazakhstan and Armenia and all these other countries, Finland and Sweden and everybody, can decide their own defensive strategies. It's up to them. If they want to join NATO, cool. If they don't want to join NATO, cool. Maybe I read too much into that document that both signed. Maybe an alleged phone call in 1990 before the USSR fell has more validity than an agreement that Russia signed after it existed in its current form for 7 years. All right, but I'm sure we don't know. You don't know. I don't know. Maybe we know. Who knows? Let's find out. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dinesh D'Souza and his guest, who will explain to you why it is your fault that Vladimir Putin is murdering citizens by under the guise of denazifying.
With Rebecca Koffler, Russian-born U.S. intelligence expert, author.
Russian-born U.S. intelligence expert. There's a lot in there, and yet it says nothing. Very KGB.
Of the book, Putin's Playbook. Rebecca, you were talking in the last...
Russia's secret plan to defeat America was the subtitle. She's got a Zelensky poster. She's got a copy of her book. So let it be known that she digs Ukrainian presidents in helmets. But it's our fault.
Segment about an irony, which is that you've got all these U.S. intelligence experts, and they seem to be participating in a scheme in America to contract and repress liberty, certainly to oppose truth from coming out. Sometimes they deploy their power to go after political opponents.
No. I don't know if you know, Dinesh, Trump lost. Just saying. I don't know who you're referring to, but certainly just Trump lost. That's happened in the past. We've had good presidents and bad presidents. Right now we have a good one. So, not too worried about it currently.
They're deploying these kind of socialist tactics in America.
Sort of socialist tactics. I think that's that's using coupons, clipping coupons. That's a sort of socialist tactic. It's sort of socialist savings.
And that are undermining, as you say, democracy. And at the same time, their rhetoric is consistently one of promoting democracy abroad. In fact, this is their whole justification for trying to mobilize a global campaign on...
I'm just saying... Oh, my hair's a little spiky in the front here. The green screen's not the best today. The lighting's a little off. I understand that. But it's better than whatever that's happening. What's this happening? This is... I'm beginning to think that she's using a dentist x-ray as a light.
Half of Ukraine, we got to protect democracy against authoritarianism. What do you think is the actual agenda of these guys? Normally, when I find that people are acting in a double standard, there's some single standard hiding behind the double standard.
Ah, fair. Yes, that's what it is. The old single standard, double standard shell game. Underneath the double standard is a single standard that is... What? Do you ever... this is like announcing you're the cleverest person in the world before you fall down a flight of stairs. What? Behind the double standard is actually a single standard. It's all a myth.
So what's the single standard? What's the agenda of these guys in promoting, let's call it authoritarianism at home, freedom abroad?
Is that Just call it that. It's not what it is. But for the sake of backing up my idiotic argument, let's call it that.
I'm actually just as stunned as you, Dinesh. It is...
I was not... When I heard Russian-born and American intelligence expert, that is not the voice I was expecting, Dinesh. That was not what I was... I honestly, this went from 0 to Karen in like 2 seconds. Yes. Roseanne's stunt double has entered the room. What? Honestly, I mean, obviously you can be born in another country, grow up here and have no accent, but I feel let down. I really do. I honestly, Dinesh, I had no idea what's going on. Like, I saw what was happening and I was like, what's happening?
a mystery to me what these people are up to, because it is really not only ironic, but it is scary that they are talking about promoting democracy in every nook and cranny of the world, even willing to go to war over it, sacrifice thousands of lives of American servicemen and women.
Well, we're not talking about World War II, asshole. We're not sending troops there. What are you talking about? We're supporting Ukraine with weapons. We're giving them intelligence, air support in terms of like satellite imagery, spy planes, and that kind of stuff. We don't have troops on the ground. What the fuck are you talking about?
Real patriots. You know, these are the people in the Washington establishment who make decisions that affect people's lives, and yet they're willing to suppress democracy here. I do not know.
Yeah, again, Trump lost. I don't know what to tell you. He was trying to suppress democracy. I mean, obviously, if you have some complaints about the state legislatures that are trying to eliminate the right to vote for a lot of people, you know, I'm right there with you, sister.
I'm at a loss, Dinesh. All I
That's true.
know is that this needs to stop, and we need to...
What does? What needs to stop? What part of it? Which of the 3 standards in the doubles, triple standard, in the Spock-like chess stacking of standards that we have? What?
Expose these people. These 50 people need to really lose their security clearances right now, and anyone who suppressed alternative analytic view, whether it's COVID, whether it's the Russian interference in 2016 election, they need to be fired right now.
Sorry, if they suppress something to do with COVID?
Security clearances right now.
Yes. Which 50?
That this needs to stop, and we need to expose these people. These 50 people need to...
These 50 people. Oh, she's got a number now. Well, I'm glad that, so there's 1 per state. Okay, so state legislatures, apparently you have 1 anti-democratic person in your state. It's up to you to weed them out. I'm talking to you, Idaho.
Really lose their security clearances right now, and anyone who suppressed alternative analytic view, whether it's COVID, whether it's the Russian interference in 2016 election.
Yeah, nobody did that. Nobody in the government did that. Media companies don't have to show every possible version of a story. They can exclude things based on their own research. They have no obligation legally to post stories that are contradictory to the truth or their own reporting. What kind of commie bullshit are you suggesting here?
They need to be fired right now.
Rebecca, where do you think...
Well, a lot of them were in the last election. I just want you to know that. So, especially the one running all of it. He was...
this Ukraine war is going? And I mean, I'm assuming you agree with me that some of this attempt to cancel Russia...
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to stop Russia from being able to give concerts at state fairs like Ted Nugent. Yes, like fucking cancel Russia. That's what we're doing. We've got a nuke with the word cancel written on it. Is that what you're suggesting? Good Lord.
To, in other words, block Russian banking from going on and make sure that the Russian singer at the Met is not allowed to perform or all this.
Well, no, she's allowed to perform, just not at the Met. The Met has no obligation to promote Russian anything right now. I don't know if you know that, but there's a lot of cultures out there. Not all of them get their shot at the Met, Demes.
Kind of stuff. I'm assuming that Putin's not going to be particularly fazed by any of this.
Yeah, he is. He's, well, I mean, you would know, Dinesh. You're the dude who has his red phone number in the bunker.
Now, he might be a little more fazed. We talked about this last time by the campaign against the Russian oligarchs. That might actually hit a little bit closer to home.
Yeah, not the banks, though. If you go after his friends, it's a big deal. But if you literally, like, put the Russian central bank on a catapult and fire it into the sun, I'm sure it wouldn't bother him at all.
But do you think that his goal is to level Ukraine and take it over? Or do you think he wants...
Yes.
...to bring the Ukrainian government into a position of abject submission to Russia, in which Ukraine would remain quasi-independent, but nevertheless...
Quasi-independent. If it was brought to heel under Putin, that's by Dinesh's standard, quasi-independent. Not to be confused with quasar-independent, which of course is a dwarf star that is, I guess, under the control of Vladimir Putin, which is a frightening notion.
Will do Russia's bidding going forward.
Yes, you know, will do Russia's bidding going forward, aka quasi-independent. Quasi, some would say.
So remember how this war started. Dinesh, Putin stated several times that Ukraine's potential membership in NATO was a red line.
Right. And then, damn it, wouldn't you know it, Ukraine started filling out the paperwork to join NATO. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, I'm getting something from... Oh, they didn't do that. That didn't actually happen. And sorry, they requested to be made member of a member state of NATO within the next few... I'm sorry, what? They didn't do that either. I see. And so, well, I guess it was because of how recently talk of them joining NATO had... I'm sorry, what? 2008. I see. So the idea is, I'm guessing, according to this young lady, is that Vladimir Putin, the falsely elected dictator of a gangster kleptocracy, believes that he has the right to dictate the security moves, concerns, and defensive alliances of 29 countries. I guess technically, let's give him 18 of them, because those are the ones that are close enough for him allegedly to worry about, although the rest can hit him with a missile from farther away. It's stupid. But he gets to dictate the security concerns and responses of a bunch of other countries that together all have more people in their countries than Russia does. So you get to kick someone's ass for the potential that they might form a friendship that will protect them from you kicking their ass in the future. That's the predicate you need now.
The reason it is a red line for Putin is because NATO is a military alliance, which specifically was created to counter the Soviet...
Right, the Soviet Union, right. As a matter of fact, they signed it after the fall of the Soviet Union. NATO started working with Russia with the idea that they would join NATO eventually, and it would be a treaty alliance against Middle Eastern extremism, terrorism, perhaps the rise of China as a military state, which is a concern. But apparently Russia was just like, nah, we're cool being a mob.
Union. And so the distance right now between...
is nothing. Latvia and Lithuania are part of NATO. They're right up on the fucking border. By the way, they're next. There is no way that his justification for Ukraine gets to happen, and then he doesn't go into Latvia and Lithuania, are you out of your fucking mind?
NATO forces and St. Petersburg, which is the second largest city in Russia, has reduced from the Cold War to today from 1,000 miles to 100 miles. Okay, Putin wants to enforce his version of the Monroe Doctrine.
Tough.
He believes that is part of his vital interests.
Yes, and Hannibal Lecter thinks that it's okay to eat a census worker because they're annoying you. I give a fuck.
You know, the strategic...
Ted Bundy thought he deserved 9 pieces of ass in an afternoon. This is how we're gonna live? This is the standard? Bank robbers believe they have the right to rob a bank and get home unmolested no matter how many people they kill in the bank. It's just their belief system.
Security perimeter. It is true that Russia has relied on that strategic buffer zone for centuries.
So what? I don't want to hear anything about security concerns in life before World War II, when these established, or even 91, when these other countries' boundaries were established, and they were like, yeah, we're cool with that. That's how it's going to be now. Why is it that NATO being on Russia's doorstep is a no-go, but Russia being on NATO's doorstep is fine? Why is it that he gets to seize land, moving him closer to them, especially when it entails wiping out a people to do it?
Wars, and most wars have come from the West, right? So that's a pure...
Whoa. You what now?
It is true that Russia has relied on that strategic buffer zone for centuries for wars, and most wars have come from the West, right? So that's a pure...
Oh, from the Western territories, I guess. Yeah, if you just... If you rule out their war with China, or their current issues with Japan and the Thule Islands, yeah,
military calculation. So right now,
it's also the part that's connected to the other land. It's surprising that it doesn't come from the Arctic.
Now, even though tactically the Russians have performed horribly.
Yeah, tactically. I mean, strategically, intellectually, philosophically, morally, psychosexually, and spiritually, also massive fails, honestly.
Miserably, it's embarrassing.
Why would it be embarrassing? What a weird thing to say. Whose side are you on? What do you mean it's embarrassing? That's really weird. Why would you bring that up? Why is it say that again, kiddo?
Calculation. What? So right now, even though tactically the Russians have performed horribly, miserably, it's embarrassing. So Putin's strategic plan has not survived contact with the adversary. He has achieved...
Oh, the adversary. Oh, I see. I thought NATO was the adversary. See, in your whole lead up, I was thinking, why would you be embarrassed by the failures of a madman? And then I went like, oh, you're on his side in this. And then you went the adversary, which is just Ukrainians, both soldiers and citizens. You're just, this is just all mask off? Is that what this whole thing is?
And is achieving his strategic goal, which is to prevent Ukraine from becoming part of NATO.
Yeah, he's guaranteeing it now. Also, fuck the whole Donbass and Crimea nonsense. They're getting pushed out too. There's no end in this where they're like, yeah, keep Crimea, go back to where we were. We let it sit, we're fine. Nah, not at this rate. Everybody out.
Why? It's because so long as Ukraine remains in active conflict, and so long as there's no territorial integrity and sovereignty, it can become part of NATO. Okay?
Yes, right. So his strategy is just to fuck up another country so that they can't join an alliance? Just keep killing Ukrainians, keep bombing their country just so they can't form an alliance with other countries as a sovereign country, which they have the right to do, which Russia and NATO agreed to in 1997.
Second, the several Ukrainian cities have just been obliterated. Foreign investment is not flowing in Ukraine. Ukraine has been
Oh, by the way, foreign investment is flowing into Ukraine in the form of Stinger missiles and javelins and drones and machine guns and ammunition. And you bet your ass when this is done, the entire world is going to help Ukraine rebuild. Fuck off, you murderous goon.
destroyed both physically and economically. And that just suits fine for Putin. And so this is...
Oh, so that part's not embarrassing. That meaning that they can't currently do infrastructure while he's blowing it up. That part's not embarrassing. Thanks.
Very, very long game. It's not going to end anytime soon. Not in a month, not in 2 months. He's in it for a very, very long haul.
Also, okay, so that's her statement so far. Besides the fact that she outed herself as being on Putin's side in this bullshit, not just, well, there's a lot of difficult and complex issues, like Russell Brand style in this, like, we gotta not be afraid to ask the questions about what we... No. Her whole thing is like, well, he's just gonna have to keep shitting on this country full of people and murdering their citizens for a while until they let him decide what they do with their country. And the whole premise of this, according to Dinesh D'Souza, is that he has the right to do this. Honestly, he has the right to. It's excusable. It's understandable that he would be engaged in this. Meanwhile, mask mandates temporarily, which have all gone away for the most part, are authoritarian dictatorship, and we might as well be living in China.
Becker, you just said something to me that's very fascinating, which is that...
Yes, a lot of what you said was psychedelic horseshit. And I feel like I've licked a shroom full of dumbass. Can you break down one of these?
You know, you would hardly be accused of being a Putin apologist. You are, in fact...
She just said she basically just showed sympathy for him. You are, in fact, what?
The book is a kind of scorched earth expose of Putin and the bandits around him. And yet
it's still macho and kind of blows smoke up his ass. It's one of those books that poses as being against him, but in reality, it's kind of supportive. It's kind of like the Pandora Papers, which magically came out and showed where oligarchs and rich people from all over the world have stashed money away and have yachts and all this kind of stuff. Except when it got to Putin, the only thing it showed was that he had a sexy girlfriend in London and he keeps her in an apartment. Interestingly enough, it didn't layer out any of the bank accounts he had. It's curious, isn't it? It's curious that came out and it like showed the dirty laundry of everybody but him, and the laundry that it did show kind of makes him look like a badass to the people around him. Weird.
You made a point that anyone who takes a kind of, let's call it America first way of thinking about the world, we have to say that if we think about American interests, and of course America came up with the Monroe Doctrine, just as you said, in order to protect its own backyard, that there is an element of rationale in what Putin is saying when he says, in effect, I need to protect my backyard.
No, the everything was not going fine in terms of the Monroe Doctrine, and then all of a sudden, we decided in 2014 to fucking invade Mexico and take more territory because, you know, people in Texas and Arizona speak Spanish. A lot of them have, you know, Mexican family over there, and that land sort of should have been a part of the United States anyways. So America launched an attack to push its border, which it's very concerned about, deeper into Mexico for security reasons. Remember when that happened in 2014? Oh, you don't. Do you remember in 2014 when right after that happened, China and Russia decided they needed to form an alliance with Mexico to protect them from American adventurism into northern Mexico where we were seizing territory? No, you don't remember that fucking happening? Do you remember last November when all of a sudden Mexico started getting military support from China out of nowhere, and we decided that was our last straw, and we amassed 100,000 tanks on the border of Mexico and America and said, we're only really there doing exercises, and then a month later we launched an invasion, you fucking tool. I swear to God, I am so fucking tired of people who couldn't shit out an analogy if they were force-fed a book on analogies like a foie gras goose.
I don't like the idea of NATO troops breathing down my neck 100 miles away from St. Petersburg any more than you would if the situations were reversed.
If the situations were reversed, technically speaking, I, like Dinesh and his guest, who is an even bigger mess, would be speaking freely on the internet from a country that allows that free speech to exist. And so my concern about NATO or another group like it being closer to me would be a positive sign, not a negative sign. I would feel like the people in Ukraine would feel if NATO moved in.
Do you think that, in fairness, that the West has been a little dismissive of Russia's legitimate security concerns?
Excuse me, citation needed. Interrupt. Hi. First of all, you're beautiful. Love you. Have fun at the pool. See you in a minute. Sorry, my girlfriend's in a bathing suit right now. The answer is no, by the way. See you in a little bit. For the record, if I may, the premise that they have legitimate security concerns is on its face bullshit.
In that sense, did the West, through its own recklessness...
Recklessness. Our recklessness to what? Talk to Ukraine about joining in 2008 and not bring it up again till now? Till they were already under attack?
Obviously, Putin's doing it. We're not trying to say that the West is doing it, but did the West contribute to this?
No.
This is kind of Mearsheimer's point in a real...
Mearsheimer is a fucking moron. For those of you that don't know, a lot of the right wing has been citing this Mearsheimer dude because he's been giving a lot of speeches basically defending the idea that Russia has these security concerns and they have every right and every reason to be upset with NATO knocking on their door. When in reality, what did he really go after in 2014 and later when Zelensky became president? In the country was their relationship with the EU and the fact that they would end up supplying oil and gas to the European Union. It had nothing to do with friggin' NATO at all. This is a resource war. He's a prick. Forget it.
Analysis of the situation. And is there the case that the Biden administration in the West does bear a little bit of the blame here?
No. Next.
So I 100% agree with John Mearsheimer.
Okay, so you're a moron. I see.
In fact, this is a highly intelligent person. He's a West Point graduate, right? But look, nobody invites John Mearsheimer to speak on TV. Even.
Yes, because he's turned out to be wrong on everything. And the only thing that lines up with what he's been saying for years is his Russian apologetics.
On regular networks that are conservative leaning, because his version of events, like the reality that he's describing to us, real politics, right, which drives every single statesman, real statesman, right?
Yes, the real statesmen are more concerned about the security concerns of a lunatic who parrots Hitler's talking points. That's real politique.
Whether not just authoritarians. So he describes it how it is. So here's the crux of the matter, Dinesh. We have refused to acknowledge that Putin has legitimate security concerns, and we pretend that those don't exist.
Oh, he has legitimate security concerns. He's probably concerned that some people in his own staff will snuff him if he's not a sufficient strongman. That's a significant concern. Do I give a shit? No. If you lie down with mercenaries, you wake up with a knife in the back of your head.
But they do exist. And the longer we're going to deny that reality, we're not going to be able to predict how far Putin is going to go in order to defend his perceived security concerns and his perceived sphere of influence. And we also got...
Yeah, again, why the fuck am I supposed to care? Why the fuck does it once his concerns entail the invasion of a sovereign country and forcibly turning it under his influence, things that normally we in the West don't like it when our countries do it. We've been out in the street over it. And that's why we support the Russians who are protesting this as well. I don't like it when we do it, so why the fuck would I like it when he does it?
Underestimate what he can potentially do. And what he can
potentially do is nuke us.
Potentially do, and I've said it many times, and this is why in some quarters I'm no longer invited, is because I talk realistically. I provide sober intelligence analysis instead of making people feel good. He may use tactical nuclear weapons.
Yes, we know that. There are a lot of people saying that that's a concern and that he might. What do you mean you're not invited on? I've seen that. I've literally seen that exact phrase and concern repeated multiple times on MSNBC. What the fuck kind of outsider do you think you are? Oh, I get it. It's the part where you're like, it's embarrassing for him, and I'm sympathetic. The sympathy part's what gets you kicked off there, because everybody's like, are you a fucking mad person?
To de-escalate conflict in Ukraine and to achieve victory that he believes is very important for him to achieve.
So he's going to use a tactical nuclear weapon to de-escalate the war. Okay, I can see that. That's legitimate, right? According to this woman in Dames.
Rebecca, that's very sobering analysis. I'm assuming it applies not just to Putin.
Yeah, both of them were fucking drunk when this whole thing started.
But also to the way we understand China. As you say, all countries in the world operate in their own self-interest, and so this...
Oh, for fuck's sake. Within parameters. When's the last... Look, France and Germany can dick around about cheese and sausage prices and whether or not Renaults and BMWs get sold in their country. That's not on the scale of these where they were in 1939, you fucking moron.
Kind of analytical playbook is absolutely vital. Folks,
it's garbage. This whole conversation is garbage. It makes no sense. It's gibberish. It's apologetics. That's the only thing we heard. Roseanne Czar. That's funny, human being. It's Roseanne Czar. That's got to be her nickname from now on. Well done, human being in the chat.
I recommend Putin's Playbook by Rebecca Koffler. Rebecca,
I haven't read it, but that shouldn't stop you.
Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dinesh. Very, very nice to be here with you and your audience.
I'm back with...
Yikes. Holy hell. But this is... what we just saw, for the record, is the equivalent of the conversation that we saw with, that Russell Brand had with Jimmy Dore. That Jimmy Dore had with Kurt Metzger. That fucking Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate have been pitching around. This this subcurrent conversation is effectively just a wave of Putin apologetics. You gotta understand. Why would you want NATO at your doorstep? I would if I was a free and open country and on my other doorstep was Russia. Of course I would. I got news for you. Ukraine didn't worry about NATO being on their doorstep. There were a bunch of countries on Ukraine's doorstep. Have been for a long fucking time. Do you think they had a security concern? Do you think not being a member of NATO, they were worried about, oh fuck, what if Poland comes in? What are we going to do? Oh, they've lined up Lithuania and Latvia or just north of us. If they take over Belarus, we're going to be squeezed between them. You think You think Ukraine gave a rat's ass? They had NATO on their doorstep. Of course not. NATO was 1,000 miles from St. Petersburg in the same way that they were 1,000 miles from Minsk. Now they're 100 miles from Minsk, or probably 300 miles because of the water. Does Belarus have to worry about being attacked by NATO, even though they're not a member country? No. Why is it that Vladimir Putin is the only person that has this concern, apparently, and it's somehow legitimate amongst these assholes? Yeah, oh, thank you, Bridget, by the way. From one Gen Xer to another, love watching you call out that bullshit. Well, thank you. Gen Xer for life. Apparently. Does anybody, like, I have yet to hear, I think I'm the only person who's brought this up, that Ukraine had NATO on its doorstep and never worried about it. Why the fuck would Russia worry about NATO on its doorstep? Because Ukraine didn't have to join. They weren't being pressured to join. There was no thuggery around it. The EU wasn't going to deny Ukraine the ability to trade in the country or anything like that if they didn't join NATO. Right? At no point. None of that. That never happened. But somehow Russia has to worry about that if Ukraine joins, that's really just, that's staging ground now. Lithuania and Latvia, which are going to have to be knocked over next, along with Moldova, that's their ass kicking is after Ukraine. That's just, understand that, because if he's going to put the band back together in terms of the old USSR states and put them under one, you know, supreme controller, that includes all those fucking countries. So is that okay too? Is Latvia next all right? Because he's concerned. Is this concern when he goes over Lithuania, when he rolls over Lithuania? Is that okay? How about Turkey? Turkey's a part of NATO. What if he decides to take Turkey? Is that all right? I mean, he's got legitimate concerns. NATO's on his doorstep. None of these other countries that had NATO on their doorstep, on their, you know, on their front door, were worried about it. It's just an interesting thing that is never a part of this conversation. NATO was coming for him. Why would they come for him? Why the fuck? If Russia was on the up and up and wasn't a danger to the world, the NATO alliance would fade away like it kind of was. It was kind of living out its own long fade because there wasn't a concern. It would have been a treaty that only needed to last, you know, 80 years or something like that. But this asshole had to go and jumpstart it by fucking around. P.S. Ever since they signed that sovereignty agreement with NATO in '97, Georgia, Chechnya, both the Donbass and Crimea, yeah, these countries have a reason to worry that Russia is on their doorstep. Ukraine was concerned that Russia was on their doorstep, and their concerns have been completely justified.
Rebecca.
All right, we finished this one out. Sorry, I had to. Ugh. Just gross. You're watching Hal Sparks Mega Worldwide, by the way. Thanks for watching. I'm on a small 3-day jaunt with my girlfriend. She just finished her project that she'd been slaving away at for over a month and a half, and basically needed a couple days away. So I packed up my little road version of my gear and took her to the beach. So we're here. She's at the pool. I'm with you guys. I love you.